Decision day in Ontario. Voters cast their ballots in a rare winter election. Tonight, examining the race for Queen's Park, the final push from the leaders, and the pulse of people at the polls. Good evening. There are just a few hours left before the polls close, and we should soon find out if Doug Ford's gamble to call the snap election will pay off. We have extensive coverage tonight, starting with CTV's Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris, live tonight at PC headquarters. Siobhan.
Well, PC leader Doug Ford said this election was necessary, that he needed a new mandate to face down the threat of tariffs from Donald Trump. Opposition leaders said this election was unnecessary and selfish. Tonight, we hear what voters think. Doug Ford walks with his wife on a rare winter election day to their polling station, returning to his former elementary school to vote for himself decades later. The progressive conservative leader triggered this campaign, arguing it was necessary in the face of tariffs.
To have a strong mandate to outlive and outlast Donald Trump. I'm going to protect the people of Ontario. I'm going to protect your families, your jobs, your communities, and businesses.
Having voted early, Marit Stiles was in a Toronto riding she wants to snatch from the Liberals.
We know what we need to do today, right? Yeah. We need to get everybody out to vote. Yeah. For the NDP, for a government and a premier that's on your side.
The NDP leader has spent much of the campaign's final days on defense, trying to keep seats from slipping away. A quieter day for the Liberal leader, helping her 89-year-old mother vote. Bonnie Crombie's reminding Ontarians to vote for better health care today. She's made that the central theme of her campaign. Mike Schreiner whipping up support in his own Guelph riding, where he marked his ex. The Greens are trying to hold on to their 2 seats in the legislature and maybe more, arguing the former PC government has ignored rural Ontario. Progressive Conservatives are hoping to add to their seat count this time around, something that would be kind of rare for a third-time government. The number to watch for tonight is anything over 83 seats. Reporting live from PC headquarters, I'm Siobhan Morris. Zaretta, back to you.
Thank you, Siobhan. Well, we haven't seen a voting day like this in quite some time. It's been more than 140 years since Ontario has had a provincial election in February. Question is, how will snowy scenes like this impact voter turnout? CTV's Natalie Johnson has been speaking with people at the polls today and joins us now live with more. Natalie.
And Zaretta, the people here at the polls today are the ones who did take the time and make the effort to come out and cast their ballot in the snow and in the slush. In the last provincial election in 2022, only 43.5% of eligible Ontarians cast their ballot, a historic low. The question this time around is whether voters are any more engaged in the political process. As Ontario awoke to a snowy election day, across the province, pit stops at the polls proved tricky for some.
Just the walk and getting over the bumps and getting on the road.
I got up, I'm 86 years old, I shoveled the driveway this morning.
The first February election in 140 years. Some saying well worth it, even in the winter.
You know, it's important that we live here to do the right thing, to have our voices heard.
The issues at the ballot box varying voter to voter.
Just supporting the middle class. We're paying a lot of different taxes and maybe not seeing all the rewards all the time.
For me, I'm old. I am unpensioned, that's okay, but the young children, they need something for helping for school and helping to have a job.
The truth of the matter is our economy needs to improve. Without improvement in our economy, Toronto's lost. Ontario's lost.
What we're going to do with the tariff.
Though the Premier's premise for calling the election, fighting back against Trump tariffs, top of mind for many.
I was just in the U.S. and they're definitely making jokes in light of the whole situation, so I definitely think it's important to consider that when voting.
I don't think Doug Ford has any clout as a premier with the President of the United States, especially one like Trump.
We support Doug Ford. We've supported the Ford family since his brother was alive.
I actually declined my ballot, because I'm tired of picking from the worst.
Between the people, the politics, and in some places, the problematic weather, voter turnout could play a big role in some ridings.
By and large, probably the Ford campaign is happy with a relatively low voter turnout. They probably feel that benefits them, and they're probably right.
On the heels of historically low turnout in the last provincial election,
always vote.
The question for Ontarians is whether they will make their vote count today. And advance poll numbers were down for this election as well. Only 6% of eligible Ontarians cast their ballots ahead of time. There is still time to vote today. The polls are open until 9 p.m. Reporting live, I'm Natalie Johnson. Zoraida, over to you.
Thank you, Natalie. And we have CTV News teams at all the party headquarters tonight, including CTV Ottawa's Patricia Bowles. She is monitoring the NDP this evening.
NDP leader Marit Stiles voted in advance of the election today, but she was out all smiles this morning, greeting supporters and volunteers, donuts in hand. But strategists will certainly admit it has been tough for the NDP, the Liberals, and others to get traction in this very short campaign in a political climate really unlike any other, where international issues keep pushing their way into a provincial election. So healthcare, education, of course, where Stiles has been very, very strong, tough to keep sustained focus on those issues at this particular time. Now, it will be very interesting to see, while Stiles says she is in it to win it, how the race for the official opposition plays out tonight. Some calling that the more compelling part of the evening. Of course, the NDP storming into official opposition in 2018, losing some seats in 2022. And tonight, Stiles has, right through the campaign, rejected any suggestions from Bonnie Crombie that people vote strategically, saying she does not want to wheel and deal for votes. She wants to earn them, and we'll see how that plays out this evening. Back to you.
Thank you, Patricia. The Liberals are gathering at the Mississauga Convention Centre tonight, and CTV's Nathan Downer is there.
There's a lot at stake tonight and a lot of storylines that we're going to be watching very closely. Number one, can Bonnie Crombie win a seat in the legislature? That's important to just strengthen her voice. You would think it's a slam dunk because she was mayor here and a city councillor here and an MP here, but it's not automatic. Don't forget the riding that she's running in was held by the PCs. And last election, the PCs won 5 out of 6 ridings in Mississauga. So that's one. Number two, they want to get just more seats overall and get official party status. They didn't get that last election. And the cherry on top would be to become the official opposition. If they can beat the NDP, you'd have to say they had a great night. So if all those three things are achieved, good for the party. But if none of that is achieved, you'd have to wonder about the future of Bonnie Crombie and also the Provincial Liberal Party. So there's certainly a lot at stake tonight and a lot of storylines we're watching very closely. Zoraida, back to you.
All right, thank you, Nathan. And CTV's Tony Grace will be watching the results coming in tonight with the Green Party in Guelph.
Well, the story we're watching here tonight at the gathering for Green Party leader Mike Schreiner is, can the Green Party hold on to the 2 seats they had heading into this election and possibly add to that? It doesn't seem like it was that long ago when the Green Party had that 1 seat in the Ontario legislature, Mike Schreiner's seat. But then fast forward to November 2023, when Aislinn Clancy picked up the party's 2nd seat with a win in Kitchener Centre, which interestingly enough had just elected a Green MP federally as well. Aislinn Clancy picking up that 2nd seat for the Greens by knocking off an NDP challenger. Actually, an NDP sitting member had stepped away, and then so Aislinn Clancy handily beat the NDP challenger to pick up that 2nd seat for the Greens. But we're also looking north of here as well to a riding, Parry Sound, Muskoka, where candidate for the Greens, Matt Richter, has been steadily picking up a share of the vote over the years, over the past decade, in fact. He came within 2,000 votes in the last election of Graydon Smith, the former mayor of Bracebridge, the PC candidate, who then went on to become a cabinet minister in Doug Ford's government. So a lot of momentum, according to party workers who I'm talking to. Mike Schreiner was just up stumping with Matt Richter in Parry Sound, Muskoka yesterday, obviously eyeing that 3rd potential seat, telling voters they had the opportunity to do something historic. And we'll see where it all lands for the Green Party when the numbers come in tonight. I'm Tony Grace, reporting in Guelph. Zoraida, back to you.
Thank you, Tony. Eligible voters can cast a ballot until 9 o'clock tonight. It's not necessary to have your voter information card. You can find your polling station at elections.on.ca and bring a piece of ID with your name and home address. And CTV will have special election night coverage all evening long. It starts right after our newscast here at 7 p.m. on CP24, CTV News Channel, and ctvnewstoronto.ca. And then at 9 p.m., we're live with the results as they come in right here on CTV News Toronto. We'll have more news in a moment. Let's give you a live look right now at downtown Toronto, Nathan Phillips Square. We had snow this morning and then rain showers this afternoon. We remain unsettled through the evening hours too. Lindsay Morrison is here now with a look at our current conditions. And Linz, we're also watching for another storm headed our way.
And that storm tomorrow, Zoraida, could be even more impactful than what we had today. Now, I do want to show you the current satellite and radar. If you're hoping to get out and vote over the next couple of hours, we do have a little bit of a lull in the precipitation, but holding on to the chance of flurries or rain showers right through the evening hours tonight. It is 3 degrees at this hour. Winds are coming out of the west and they are strengthening. Winds are going to be part of the weather story for tomorrow. Here is your election evening forecast. Chance of rain showers or flurries, but overnight tonight things are going to change. We are watching for an incoming storm. We'll have all of the details coming up. For now, Zoraida, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Toronto police say a man stabbed last week in the city's West End has died. The matter is now a homicide investigation. Emergency crews were called to the area of Dovercourt Road and Geary Avenue at about 2:30 a.m. last Friday. They found a man suffering from a stab wound and rushed him to hospital in life-threatening condition. Police say he succumbed to his injuries on Monday. They've also identified him as 38-year-old Paulo Mota of Toronto. Police are asking anyone with information to get in touch. So far, they have shared no suspect information. A motorist is dead after a single vehicle crash on the 407 this morning. Provincial police say the vehicle flipped over at about 10 a.m. in the eastbound lanes near Kennedy Road in Markham. They also say the driver was the only person inside. They were pronounced dead at the scene. OPP closed a stretch of the highway for several hours. It has since reopened. And a stretch of the 401 was blocked for much of the day in Scarborough after a 3-vehicle collision late this morning. It involved a minivan, a snowplow, and a scrap metal truck that left debris in the eastbound Collector Express transfer lanes. A female passenger from the minivan was taken to a hospital as a precaution after the crash, which was cleared by about 3:45. And no serious injuries after a 2-vehicle crash in Hamilton last night. It happened just after 11:30 p.m. at Kenilworth Avenue and Main Street. You can see one of the vehicles ended up crashing into a store, causing significant damage. Hamilton police say the cause of the crash appears to be driver error. No word yet on any possible charges. Still to come, Hollywood is mourning Oscar winner Gene Hackman as authorities call the circumstances surrounding his and his wife's deaths suspicious. Details coming up ahead. Donald Trump says Canada has not done enough to prevent tariffs being imposed next week. The U.S. president insisted today the duties will take effect on Tuesday, despite another visit to Washington by a Canadian delegation. CTV's Judy Trin reports.
A full court press from Canada's top security officials responsible for the border, the Mounties, and fentanyl. They have a message to deliver to the American border czar that Canada is stopping fentanyl from being smuggled into the U.S.
The evidence is irrefutable. The progress is being made. In my view, any test that was put on this country, on Canada, in terms of showing progress and meeting standards for the border, I believe those have been met.
On the Canadian border, there are now more drug-sniffing dogs, while Black Hawk helicopters track suspicious activity. In a span of 40 days, the Mounties have also made 524 arrests and seizures across Canada, including more than 46 kilograms of fentanyl and more than 15,700 pills.
And the result speaks for itself. 47 kilograms of fentanyl, over 15,000 pills, not strictly fentanyl, but other pills as well. 122 firearms and multiple arrests, over 524 arrests. So that's a success.
Less than 0.2% of illegal fentanyl seized in the U.S. comes from Canada. American officials also say that in the past month, that amount has dropped by an additional 97%. This morning, President Donald Trump posted that tariffs are coming anyway on March 4th because fentanyl kills about 100,000 Americans a year. Later, he said other nations should block fentanyl from getting into the U.S.
The country should not be allowing those drugs to come into the United States of America, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So that goes on the 4th of March.
If Trump is unconvinced by the evidence, the Prime Minister says Canada will be ready to hit back.
If on Tuesday there are unjustified tariffs brought in on Canada, we will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
The federal government has prepared a plan to retaliate on $155 billion worth of American goods. It's a countermeasure that more than 70% of Canadians support. Judy Trin, CTV News, Ottawa.
With the threat of tariffs looming, Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow says she is putting together a plan to help the city's economy. Today, the mayor held the first meeting of what she calls the city's economic action team. 12 members from business leaders in the housing sector, auto industry, and financial institutions, as well as venture capitalists, gathered with the mayor and city staff this afternoon. Chow says that with a $78 billion operating budget, the city of Toronto does have some cards to play in the fight against U.S. tariffs.
We have the biggest city in the country. We are the economic engine. As I said earlier, we are the global beacon of hope. We have a rough draft of our action plan, and we're going to go deep into it and get some ideas, and we will present it to you. But first, most foremost, every Torontonian can absolutely buy Canadian.
Beyond a promise for a plan in the near future, Chow called on Torontonians to unify to fight these tariffs. The Economic Action Team is expected to regularly convene over the coming weeks. And still to come, a patriotic push. A new survey suggests shoppers want retailers to promote local goods. What they are calling for to help consumers choose Canadian. Coming up later in the newscast. Hollywood is mourning the loss of one of the greatest actors of his generation. Gene Hackman has passed away at the age of 95. His body was discovered yesterday with that of his wife in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
The search warrant was executed just before 10 o'clock p.m. last night. And so they've been working diligently through the night and starting again in the morning to completely process the scene. And so we're still in the preliminary steps of the investigation.
The two-time Oscar winner and pianist Betsy Arakawa died of unknown causes. Foul play is not suspected at this time. A maintenance worker who discovered the bodies found the front door ajar, but there were no signs of a break-in or that anything had been disturbed, and no obvious indication of a gas leak. The body of one of the couple's dog was also found. Hackman had an illustrious career, receiving a total of 5 Oscar nominations. CTV's Scott Lightfoot takes a look at some of his most notable roles.
I expect and demand your very best.
For more than 5 decades, he was a star of the screen, but Gene Hackman started his life as a child of divorce who lied about his age to join the Marines and then worked a number of different jobs just to pay for auditions.
Every day was like a new challenge. It was going out and trying to get that job and doing those auditions, and I loved it.
The aspiring actor joined the Pasadena Playhouse, where he met another young hopeful named Dustin Hoffman. The two were voted least likely to succeed.
Whoa! We're going to have ourselves a time, boy!
But it didn't take long for success to come. His first of 5 Oscar nominations garnered for his role in Bonnie and Clyde.
I don't buy that, Irv. The stuff is in that car.
1971's The French Connection would get him his first Oscar win.
The prestige involved with an Oscar means that you have been in a couple of films that have made some money and that they can take a chance on you.
On Independence Day.
And Hackman kept capitalizing on the chances he was given, winning an Oscar 21 years later for his role in Unforgiven. But Hackman says he felt the tough guy roles limited his range.
We're cast so close to type in films that you can only do so much within your own persona.
He created the film persona of an iconic nemesis to Superman.
You were great in your day, Superman.
And though a huge star, Hackman said he always liked the idea of Hollywood, but never fully embraced it.
I guess movie star is Robert Redford and Paul Newman and kind of guys that I idolized or visualized when I was a real young guy.
In the 1980s, Hackman and his then-girlfriend, later wife, classical pianist Betsy Arakawa, moved to New Mexico. He would continue his film career. In his later films, Hackman took on comedic roles.
Comedy's harder because, you know, it isn't arbitrary. If they don't laugh, it doesn't work.
And the problem is?
And in 2004, citing the stress of the craft as being a hazard to his health, Hackman retired from acting, for the most part living out the rest of his life out of the spotlight. Gene Hackman was 95. Scott Lightfoot, CTV News, Toronto.
Egypt says talks on the next phase of the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas began today. Phase 2 is intended to negotiate an end to the war and see the withdrawal of all Israeli troops. It also includes the return of the remaining hostages in Gaza. Mediators are also discussing ways to enhance the delivery of humanitarian aid to the Palestinian enclave. The first phase expires Saturday. Hours before today's talks began, an Israeli official said the military will not withdraw from a strategic corridor as called for under the truce to prevent weapons smuggling. Overnight, the bodies of 4 hostages were returned to Israel. The remains of the hostages were handed over with the help of Egyptian mediators. They are the last due to be released under the terms of the first phase of the ceasefire. In exchange, over 600 Palestinian prisoners were freed. The initial phase of the truce included the handover of 33 Israeli hostages in return for about 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Here at home, Vaughan's Jewish community held a vigil last night in memory of 3 hostages who died while being held captive by Hamas. The bodies of Cherie Bibas and her 2 young sons, Ariel and Kafir, were returned to Israel last week. They were kidnapped from their home on a kibbutz during the Hamas attack on southern Israel on October 7th of 2023. NATO Secretary General says allies are preparing billions of dollars more in aid to Ukraine, along with contributions to security guarantees. Mark Rutte spoke to Donald Trump today, with the 2 leaders agreeing on the importance of Canada and Europe significantly increasing their defense spending. The war in Ukraine was also a major focus at the White House this afternoon.
I think we're going to have a very successful peace, and I think it's going to be a long-lasting peace. And I think it's going to happen hopefully quickly. If it doesn't happen quickly, it may not happen at all.
Trump spoke during a visit by the UK Prime Minister. Keir Starmer believes a lasting peace will endure only if Kyiv and European leaders are at the negotiating table. Trump will welcome Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the White House tomorrow to further discuss prospects for a peace deal. In Rome, there was some more encouraging news today about the Pope's health. It is a cautiously upbeat assessment as the pontiff battles double pneumonia in hospital. The Vatican says his clinical condition continued to show improvement. It was the second straight update that the Pope's condition was not described as critical, but doctors do not think he is out of the woods just yet. King Charles had a message for Donald Trump today, and it arrived by special delivery.
This is a letter from His Majesty the King. It's an invitation for a second state visit. This is really special. This has never happened before. This is unprecedented.
The U.S. president accepted the invitation. It will be Trump's second state visit to the UK. He also received the honor during his first term in the White House. To Florida next, where NASA's mission to locate water on the moon began today.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and liftoff. Go Falcon, go to ignition.
A rocket carrying a satellite and a lunar lander lifted off from Cape Canaveral this morning. The satellite will keep a lookout from above while the lander will do its work on the surface. The goal is to find water or ice deposits that will be key for the Artemis mission. It intends to put astronauts on the moon for long-term stays. Still to come, election night in Ontario. The race for Queen's Park is headed for the finish line. A look at what CTV News has planned for coverage tonight, coming up.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert this week, we told you about a man who lost $750,000 in a GIC bank scam. More victims say the same thing happened to them. Now there is increasing pressure on banks to refund the money to scam customers. All of my reports just ahead.
Well, now's the time to start planning ahead when it comes to your Friday afternoon and evening commute. Winter weather travel advisory in place for Toronto. Snowfall warnings to the north with significant snow expected into tomorrow night. How's the rest of the weekend shaping up? It's going to be cold. All of those details are still ahead. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
Early Earlier this week, we told you about an Oakville senior who lost his life savings in a bank scam involving fake websites. Well, following our report, more victims have come forward. CTV's Pat Foran joins us now live with Consumer Alert. Pat.
Well, thank you, Zoraida. Criminals are creating websites that look like the real thing, and when people transfer their money, it basically disappears. There are calls for banks to step up and do more to protect their customers and refund those who have been scammed.
You thought you were on the real PC Financial website.
Of course I did.
Walter Yamka of Oakville wanted to transfer money into a GIC investment last fall. He typed best GIC rates into the Google search engine and clicked on a website that appeared to be PC Financial's and called their number.
I said, I can come up with $750,000.
Yamka asked his bank to transfer the money, but it was a fake website, and he was scammed out of $750,000.
The bank should confirm the receivers that they're legitimate.
I'm devastated. I'm devastated that people are able to do this.
Samantha Barnes from near Calgary saw the story and contacted CTV News as the same scam happened to her. She was also searching online for GIC rates and clicked on a spoofed PC Financial website. She was scammed out of $233,000. She says she raised concerns because the money was being sent to a BMO account and not PC Financial, but her bank wired the funds anyway.
It was a very uncomfortable situation. Yes, I was there doing it, but I feel like the banks really could have done a whole lot more to prevent this from happening.
CTV News spoke with another victim from Kitchener who also lost $900,000 to the same scam.
The banks have been completely negligent in setting up an online banking system and not putting in place the safeguards to prevent these kind of fraudulent rip-offs of their customers.
PC Financial does not sell GICs. In both cases, Yamka's bank, CIBC, and Barnes Bank, TD, said while staff will ask questions, if a client authorizes a transaction, they will follow their instructions. Duff Conacher says that's not good enough and feels banks should refund a customer's money if they don't catch the scam.
The Bank Act should be changed to say, banks, unless you can prove that you went through the full process of due diligence, you're paying the customer back.
And banks claim they're updating systems to stay ahead of fraud, but some scammers seem to be one step ahead of them. Bank customers need to be vigilant and be careful moving money and assume something is a scam until you're sure that it isn't. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
Okay, we've been seeing some mild temperatures as of late, which is kind of nice, but it's making for a real messy one out there.
It is. You know, we had a lovely winter mission, if you will. We enjoyed some spring-like weather this week, and you're right. Now we're starting to get some of those warmer temperatures mixing with the precipitation, and that's resulted in some rain showers at times today. Earlier this morning, though, it was snow. Here's a look at what it looked like at the Markham Road and Lawrence area. The snow quite pretty, but maybe not exactly ideal for a morning drive or walk if you're a pedestrian. Slippery spots out there with all the melting recently. Roads and sidewalks were wet. And then, of course, you get that fresh round of wet snow and not exactly the best. Here's the thing. We're in for another round of this as we make our way into the day tomorrow. This is the current satellite and radar imagery. I'll step aside so you can see another round of wet flakes on the way. There goes the system that brought us the snow earlier today. Another Alberta Clipper is headed our way. And yes, this one could bring some areas even more in the way of heavy snow. If you're joining us from Orillia, Midland, Parry Sound, and northern Peterborough County, you are under a snowfall warning. So 15 centimeters of fresh snow possible for you in and around the GTA, Mississauga, all the way to Belleville, and then north in through York region, northern Durham region. I'm thinking maybe 5 centimeters of snow, but it's possible that some areas could see less if mixing is introduced. Other areas could see more, maybe up to about 10 centimeters. Tomorrow morning starts off dry, albeit cloudy. This all gets going just after lunchtime. So we'll say about 1 p.m. Friday. It'll be with us, that wet snow, throughout the afternoon and evening drive, and then into the late evening. Again, maybe some mixed precipitation or even rain as far as Hamilton, as far north as Burlington and Oakville, certainly around the Niagara Peninsula, and perhaps impacting us in Toronto too. Things are going to be drier as we make our way into Saturday, but the winds are going to change direction. That could lead to some lake effect snow off of Lake Huron, and it's certainly going to cool us down. Those strong winds ushering in colder air, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. This particular model, I think, is suggesting the lower end of possible wet snow in the GTA. Again, 5 to even 10 centimeters looks likely at this point, maybe 2 to 5 for downtown Toronto proper. It is 2 degrees at this hour, hence why we've seen a little bit of light rain earlier today. But tonight, cooling right down to a low of -7 degrees, wind chill -14. It'll be a chilly start to tomorrow. Bundle up. Might get a little bit of sun early on, but again, the active weather gets going in the afternoon. We might reach our daytime high in the evening of about 1 degree. That will be just warm enough to bring us that potential for some rain or at the very least mixed precipitation. Let's talk about the cold this weekend. -6 for the high Saturday, -17 degrees, the overnight low into Sunday. That's not taking the wind chill into consideration. Lots of sun for both Sunday and Monday. Hey, look at the middle part of next week. Our temperature rebounds back up to highs of 4 degrees on Tuesday and maybe 7 by Wednesday. That's your look at the weather. Zoraida, back to you.
Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, as the country faces U.S. tariff threats, a new survey shows just how far shoppers are willing to go to buy Canadian. The top takeaways for retailers and consumers are coming up right here on CTV News at 6.
I think it's super important for everybody to vote. We have to have our say.
Updating our top stories, we're in the final hours of voting for Ontario's next provincial government after a rare snap winter campaign. Polling stations are open until 9 tonight, and CTV will have the results as part of our special election night coverage. It gets underway right after the end of this newscast at 7 p.m.
We will have an immediate and extremely strong response, as Canadians expect.
Ottawa says it is ready to retaliate if the United States puts tariffs on Canadian goods. U.S. President Donald Trump said this morning he is still planning to impose those import taxes on Tuesday. Mayor Olivia Chow held the first meeting of the city's Economic Action Team today with a goal of shielding Toronto from the impacts of the trade turbulence.
There was no immediate sign of foul play. Haven't ruled that out yet. This is an investigation.
And Hollywood is mourning Oscar-winning actor Gene Hackman and his wife, pianist Betsy Arakawa. As fans look back on Hackman's legendary career on screen, police say it's not clear what caused the couple's deaths. Their bodies were found at their New Mexico home by a maintenance worker with no obvious signs of trauma. And you can head to our website for the latest coverage on the day's top stories and catch our election night coverage. It's at ctvnewstoronto.ca. On the markets, the Canadian dollar changed hands at 69.24 US, down half a cent. Western Canadian Select was at 55.40, down 10 cents. And the TSX Composite Index ended at just over 25,000, down about 200 points.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
Well, as the threat of U.S. tariffs looms, a new survey suggests Canadians want retailers to make it easier for them to support local businesses. CTV's Beth McDonnell has more on the growing movement to buy Canadian.
There you go, Richmond, BC. Fantastic. I picked the right one.
Grocery shopping has become an exercise in national pride. So much so, Canadians are opening their wallets wider for made-in-Canada products.
30% more, 40% more.
Or foregoing some items altogether.
We didn't buy any fresh berries because the only ones we found were American, and specifically Floridian. No, it's not happening in my house.
And I noticed there's a lot more American products on sale right now, but I'm still skipping it.
Looking for the Canadian flag more often than not on any items, really, anything I buy.
A new KPMG survey of nearly 2,000 Canadians found 80% are purposefully looking for the non-U.S. version of products. 84% are reading labels to see where products are made, with 77% saying they'll buy Canadian even if it costs more. The survey also says 93% want stores to identify and promote Canadian products, with 70% saying they'll boycott U.S. goods if Trump follows through with 25% tariffs, with 89% saying grocery stores should be required to give preferential shelf space to Canadian-made food. KPMG's Tim Webb says it's a shift producers are looking to capitalize on.
So those food producers are also having the conversations with the retailers saying, hey, we really are 98% Canadian, so can we get more promotion time and more visibility?
We're outside of envelope right
This month, businesses in the Broadview-Danforth area had a social media campaign showing off Canadian products in its stores, everything from clothes to glasses and chocolates.
It's been educational, and I mean, we're all learning what's Canadian and what's not. So that was heartwarming.
But the survey also found 90% of respondents saying governments should reduce the cost of everyday essentials with tax cuts or tax credits. With affordability top of mind, how long the commitment to Canadian will last is up in the air.
You buy, you sell, the better in terms of prices. But yeah, I think it's a short-term thing, yeah.
Beth McDonnell, CTV News.
Coming up, improving the lives of people living with rheumatoid arthritis. Researchers at York University identify a new treatment for the disease. Health News is next.
Tonight, mystery surrounds the shocking death of legendary actor Gene Hackman, his wife, and their dog.
In my book, we're going to be winners.
One of the leading actors of his generation.
The touching tributes and what police discovered inside their home. Later on CTV National News.
The latest research being done at York University is paving the way for new treatments for rheumatoid arthritis. We get the details from CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan.
Nearly 400,000 Canadians live with rheumatoid arthritis, and while its causes are multi-layered and complex, researchers at York U have discovered a specific protein that could be the key to reducing the debilitating effects of this condition.
So the gene we work on is called TRAF1, spelled TRAF1. It's an immune protein that is present in most immune cells.
Previous studies have found it is associated with an increased risk of developing rheumatoid arthritis.
People with too much of this protein have higher immune cell activation, meaning their immune cells are overactive.
Conversely, too little of this protein can also cause problems in rheumatoid arthritis. Professor Ali Abdul-Sader has identified a critical mutation in TRAF1, which can allow them to shut down the overactive immune response that causes the body to attack its own joints. Current treatments include broad immunosuppressives like steroids.
It's got so many side effects, and it will put you at a higher risk of infections, right?
There are also biologics, but they are so specific in their targets that many patients, up to half, don't respond to them.
The researchers are just beginning tests on human patient tissues, but it will likely be many years before they can do clinical trials on human patients.
Still, Abdul-Sader says with so many suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, finding a treatment, especially for those who don't currently respond to medications, is an exciting goal. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
Public health officials say the number of confirmed measles cases in Ontario has doubled over the last 2 weeks. Public Health Ontario reported 78 new infections over the last 2 weeks as part of an outbreak that started in October. To put the surge in cases into context, there have been 142 confirmed or probable infections so far in 2025. Between 2013 and 2023, there were 101. Measles is a highly contagious but preventable disease that's mostly infected unvaccinated children and teens in this outbreak. Officials say the vaccine is the best way to stay protected. Pride Toronto is making adjustments to this year's festivities in the face of rising costs and uncertainty with corporate sponsors. Pride Toronto is now expecting a budget shortfall of about $300,000. As a result, organizers have paused plans for a stage at Dundas and Church Streets and a 2-day mini festival on the Toronto Islands. They've also indicated they will focus on featuring more local artists this year instead of international headliners. Pride Toronto's executive director says he believes corporations are pulling back on support to avoid being targeted by the Trump administration for supporting 2S LGBTQ+ initiatives.
The reasons why I have not named these companies, because I do not believe that it's all blame should be laid on them. There is a level of fear that we're seeing by these companies and how it can impact them in the long run.
Despite the challenges, Pride events will take place across the city throughout June with the theme All In. The main festival weekend is June 26th to the 29th. In sports, the Raptors were in action last night against the Indiana Pacers.
Down once again. Barrett, mid-range, good. And RJ coming alive here in the fourth.
Indiana led after the first quarter and built on their lead for the rest of the game. They ended up winning at 111-91. The Raps are back on the court tomorrow to play the Chicago Bulls. And of course, the big contest to watch tonight is the Ontario provincial election. Doug Ford hoping to stay on as premier, but plenty of opposition from other party leaders trying to stop him. We will have special coverage tonight, including CP24 Breakfast's Nick Dixon, who will be analyzing the results as they come in.
Thanks, Arida. Okay, let's take a look and show you Ontario at dissolution right now and show you what the seats look like. This is Northern Ontario, of course, looks very heavily New Democratic, but keep in mind, these are very large ridings. The New Democrats basically own a lot of this territory with a little bit of PC blue mixed in. Into Eastern Ontario right now at dissolution, in the rural areas, it's all Doug Ford PC blue with Liberals and New Democrats sprinkled in and around the Kingston and Ottawa areas in the cities. Let's move now to Central Ontario as well at dissolution. Look at that, a sea of blue. This is Fortress Ford right here. We'll be watching tonight if he holds onto this part of the province as well. As we move down, of course, to southwestern Ontario, you can see, again, in and around the cities, Kitchener, Waterloo, Hamilton area as well, a few NDP seats sprinkled in, but again, majority PC territory here. And let's drill down as well and show you Toronto, because this is 905 belt right around here, very much blue, GTA area. And as we move into Toronto as well, here you go. This is where there could be some interesting pickups tonight. This is where we're expecting to see maybe a few seats change or flip. You've got a lot of blue for PCs, but the Liberals and New Democrats, they're going to be fighting it out for seats as well. Lots to watch for. Again, it is the race, Arida, for 63.
All right, thank you, Nick. And of course, we have teams throughout the city and province taking in all the election drama tonight. CTV's Michelle Dubé is co-anchoring our special coverage tonight. She joins us now here in studio. So, Michelle, what can we expect from this special?
Yes, well, you know, we've covered plenty of elections, and election night in the news business is like our Super Bowl, right? And just like the party leaders have been crisscrossing the province and going to all the different ridings and been really busy, we have been coordinating our coverage with CP24 to really bring you the results as they happen. It's going to be an exciting night in the province. We'll get to see how it takes shape. We're going to be, as you saw earlier, we'll be at all the leaders' headquarters. We'll be getting the reaction, the cheers, and sometimes the tears, but also the key ridings. We're able to tack into the CTV network and our affiliates, and so they've been pinpointing some key ridings, and so we really are going to follow the puck as the results come in. And what's really great is we have our CTV News decision desk. They use research, an algorithm, and then the results as they come in, and they're able to decide and really figure out mathematically, oftentimes very early in the night, just which way the winds are blowing in this province.
Yeah, election night is always fun. And of course, you're not alone here in studio. We've got a panel of experts and analysts to help us out through the night.
Yes, so Lena Latifat's going to be sitting where you are. We'll be co-anchoring, but we also have CTV's chief political news anchor, Vashi Capello. She's going to be right over there with a panelist, John Moore, Bill Carroll, Sabrina Nanji. And they don't always agree. It might get fiery, but they're really going to be able to dig into the results as they come in. And you saw Nick on the power board there. So it's going to be a lot of fun. The polls are saying, you know, that the PC party is poised for a third mandate. But as you and I know, you never really know until the results come in. So it could be very interesting, but we will be following every single result as it happens, and we'll bring it to you tonight.
Yeah, never know. It's going to be an exciting night. Michelle, thanks for joining us here on The 6. Our election night coverage, of course, starts in just a few moments, right after our newscast at 7 p.m. on CP24, CTV News Channel, and CTV Toronto, ctvnewstoronto.ca. And then at 9, we are live with the results as they come in here on CTV News Toronto. Still to come tonight, sharing stories for African Heritage and Black History Month, a special guest, and lessons learned at one Toronto school today. And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight, and a special hello to those of you listening to the newscast on News Talk 1010. Throughout the month of February, students from across the GTA have been celebrating and recognizing Black History Month and African Heritage Month. And one Toronto school has been marking the month with unique programming and special guest speakers. Our very own Jessica Smith was invited to speak today at Alpha Alternative Junior Public School, where she shared her story and journey in journalism with the students. For the teachers and students at Alpha, they say it's important to learn about the diverse community we live in and to give the students the opportunity to take an active role in their own education.
The school is very much about kids having a say, kids being represented, kids enjoying themselves and taking responsibility for their education. And it's also a place where parents are very much involved in the school. And Black History Month, African Heritage Month, we'd like to celebrate that because it's so important for those voices to be heard. And we do anti-Black racism throughout the year, and this is just an opportunity to really celebrate it.
The students had a chance to do a Q&A with Jess and wrapped up their African Heritage Month celebrations with a potluck featuring foods inspired by African and African Canadian culture. Looked like a fun day. All right, one last look at the forecast, and we got to get ready for some more snow.
We do, and it looks as though this one tomorrow is going to impact not only the early afternoon drive, but likely right into the evening as well. So here's your traveler's forecast for Friday. Might be time to start planning ahead, maybe leaving work early or hitting the road early if you are headed off somewhere for the weekend. The snow really gets going early afternoon, continues into the evening. Then we are going to cool right down over the weekend. It will be bitterly cold midway through the weekend, but then is going to be mild again midway through next week. So let's take one more look at the 7-day forecast. Daytime high -6 for your Saturday, overnight low -17. But look at the middle part of next week, Zoraida. Highs of around 4 and 7 degrees again. Bit of weather whiplash.
I'm going to focus on that sunshine this weekend.
Yes, we'll focus on that.
All right, thanks, Linz. And be sure to join us for live election coverage tonight. Our live special starts now on CP24, CTV News Channel, and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca. And you can watch on the CTV News main network starting at 9 p.m. And I'll have all the results and reaction during our newscast tonight at 11:30. For Lindsay Morris and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching. Have a good night.